how much of a soccer fan were you prior to this?
Well, first of all, Dan, I have to call it football, otherwise I will get stabbed when I go to Wales. So I'm gonna call it football and American football.
Okay. All right.
So I didn't really know much about football at all. But it's the biggest sport in the world. As you know, I'm a massive American sports fan, and yet I never really watched a lot of football. But over the pandemic, I was just, as we all were, I was desperate to watch anything. There was no live sports for a year. So I would just go back and watch all these documentaries, anything I could get my hands on. And I started watching all these football documentaries. And then I started watching the old games from the Premier League, starting from the 60s all the way up.
Did you watch Sunderland Till I Die?
I did. Yeah.
And that's what I thought when I initially heard that you and Pretty Boy bought this soccer team, that I didn't even get a smile off Pretty Boy with Ryan.
I take that very seriously. He is exceptionally pretty.
Okay.
And I actually call him that on a regular basis, and I appreciate that it's catching on.
But I did wonder about that when I heard you guys were buying this football club, that if you watch these documentaries, like, you understand you can't be a poser going in there. Like, you got to be like, do you care? And they're trying to gauge, do you really know what this means to me and how this hurts us? When we lose, it hurts the entire town. It's like a college football team. Did they test you? How did they test you of how much you love Wrexham?
Yes. So that's actually documented in the very first episode. We had this Zoom with thousands of members of the community that were on it, and we were asked questions about our intentions, about our business plan, and we had to present it to the entire town. And the reason, they had to vote, and the vote, I don't want to give anything away, but the vote was almost unanimous in the affirmative, and the reason is because they recognize that I love my community, the community I grew up in Philadelphia, and I love the Eagles and the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers with such passion. And the reason isn't because of what happens on the court or the rink or the pitch, but as you know, you make a living out of it. Sports is storytelling, and that's what we recognize, is that we don't really invest in the sport itself. We invest in the people that are playing it, and we invest in the people who we are watching it with and experiencing it with.
Yeah, and you just see what it means to them. And, when they talk about it's not life or death, it's more than that, I think, is the quote that's in the trailer there. But when you go there, it's one thing to be on a Zoom call. Then you go into the pubs.
Yeah.
What's that feeling like?
I can tell you, okay, so this is really strange. And to just put this into historical context, we just purchased the stadium, because we're going to do a bunch of renovations on it. And you have to really look at it more as a restoration program than a renovation, because it's hallowed ground. We don't really have anything like this. So our version of it would be, Wrigley or even Yankee Stadium or something along those lines. But the truth is that the racecourse ground which is the stadium where we play. When it was originally built, Thomas Jefferson was the president of the United States. So we don't have anything like that here. It became a football ground in 1864. While we were in the middle of a civil war, the soccer club, the football club that Ryan and I purchased, was being incorporated. You realize that this is in their DNA. So everywhere you go, you have to walk around with a sense of reverence and respect. However, they also want to win. And that's what we're bringing in, a completely different ethos and trying to figure out ways in which we can give this club the opportunity to win and win consistently.
You can't use ethos over there. Come on. I mean, you could use that on Good Morning America, but come on. You can't go,
culture,
and I'm going to change the ethos. And then somebody's like, what's ethos mean? What's ethos?
No, then I go, Pretty Boy said it. And then they're like, what?
But, knowing Ryan's sense of humor, do you ever have to elbow him and go, hey, don't be goofing around here, man? Like,
okay, yes. So yes, this exact thing happened. So Ryan wasn't even a massive sports fan. He's just he's an entrepreneur and he's a businessman and he's truly a great guy. And I knew that I wanted to have I wanted to work with him in some capacity. I needed a business partner, but he doesn't really understand the culture of sports. And so when we went over there and we watched them, the first game that we saw them play, they lost. Okay. So these guys are playing for their lives. They don't have Premier League contracts. I mean, they're very modest salaries at this level. So we lost the game and we go into the locker room after the game to console the guys. Well, he went in thinking, well, I'll cheer them up. And he starts telling jokes. He's telling jokes to these guys. And I'm like, Ryan, they're not playing. Your jokes are not playing. Your jokes barely play out in Hollywood. They're not gonna play. People are getting sick of your shit, man. Like, how many Deadpools do you think you can throw out there? But eventually people are going to get sick of it. It's certainly not going to play in the locker room of a Welsh football team after they've just lost. And certainly they did not. So I'm like elbowing him to shut up.